Here are Grandma's 25 poor man food hacks to save money that actually work. Perk coffee again over fresh grounds. One of the most ingenious ways to stretch a kitchen staple is to brew coffee over used grounds. Grandma did this often, especially when company dropped in unannounced and the pantry was lean. After you perk the first batch, simply add a small scoop of fresh grounds to the used ones and brew again. The result is still flavorful, just milder, a trick that extends your coffee without sacrificing your morning ritual. It's not about being cheap, but being clever with what you already have. To avoid bitterness, don't let the reused grounds sit too long before rebrewing. If you have leftover coffee, use it to flavor cakes or make a homemade coffee syrup. Coffee ice cubes are another great way to reuse without waste. Pour cooled leftovers into trays and freeze. Reuse those cubes for iced drinks later. To avoid mold buildup in reused grounds, be sure to air out your percolator between uses. Save and reuse bacon drippings. Did you know that bacon grease was once so valuable? Families collected it in jars to cook nearly everything. It's not just flavorful, it was a kitchen cornerstone during lean years. After frying bacon, pour the leftover drippings through a mesh strainer into a clean jar. Once cooled, it becomes a solid that can be stored at room temperature or in the icebox. Use it to fry potatoes, add depth to beans, or flavor cornbread. The smoky richness makes even bland vegetables taste indulgent. Just a spoonful adds savory punch to soups and stews. For best flavor, avoid burning the grease by cooking bacon slowly over medium heat. Discard any foam or burnt bits before saving. If grease develops an odd smell, toss it. It should smell smoky, never sour. Keep a dedicated tin or crock with a lid to hold the drippings. You can also use bacon grease to season cast iron pans for extra durability and shine. Re-steep yesterday's tea leaves right away. Using tea leaves twice may sound odd today, but it was once standard practice in homes stretching every penny. After steeping your first pot, keep the damp leaves in a cool corner or in a covered jar. Within a few hours, add hot water again and steep a second time, though slightly longer. This next round offers a milder brew, perfect for sipping with lunch or as an evening wind down. Green, oolong, and black teas all respond well to double use. For herbal teas like chamomile or mint, the second steep may even draw out softer notes not present the first time. Be sure to steep it in hot, but not boiling, water to avoid bitterness. For a refreshing twist, chill the second batch for iced tea or blend with lemon and honey. If you still have spent leaves afterward, scatter them around garden beds to enrich the soil and deter pests with their natural tannins. Practice 3-meal rubber chicken routine. A clever food hack from tighter times, the rubber chicken method stretches one roast bird into 3 solid meals. Grandma often made this into a delicious art form. Roast the whole chicken for dinner, serving carved breast meat with vegetables. The next day, shred leftover thighs and wings for chicken salad or pot pie filling. On the third day, simmer the carcass with onions and herbs for a rich broth and hearty soup. Each stage gives you a new meal from the same base, saving both time and money while cutting food waste. This method works well with any whole bird. Turkey or duck can be substituted depending on the season. If you're short on time, freeze leftover portions in labeled jars for later use. For added flavor, toss a few cloves of garlic or a dash of vinegar into the broth pot. Skim off the fat and save it to fry up potatoes later. Simmer leftover bones for broth. There's real gold in your bones. Kitchen gold, that is. After a roast or baked meat dinner, don't discard the bones. Place them in a pot with onion peels, carrot tops, celery ends, and a splash of vinegar. Cover with water and simmer gently for hours. This draws out minerals, gelatin, and rich flavor, creating a nourishing base for soups, stews, or gravies. You can add herbs like bay leaf or thyme to round out the flavor. Avoid oversalting until the broth is finished and reduced. Strain and cool the liquid, then pour into jars for storage. It lasts in the icebox for about a week or freeze for future use. Bone broth is not only economical but also full of nutrients that support joints and digestion. For extra richness, roast the bones first in a hot oven before simmering. And if you have leftover bits of meat on the bone, shred them into the final broth for added protein. Bake potato peels into crispy chips. Nothing goes to waste in a clever kitchen, not even potato skins. Instead of tossing those peels, wash them thoroughly and toss with a bit of oil, salt, and any dried herbs you have on hand. Spread them thin on a baking sheet and roast at a moderate temperature until they crisp up, golden, and crunchy. These make an excellent snack and can be seasoned to suit sweet or savory palates. Sprinkle paprika or garlic powder for extra flavor, or dust with cinnamon and sugar for a twist. Potato peel chips not only reduce kitchen waste, but also provide fiber and nutrients still clinging to the skin. You can store cooled chips in a paper bag for a few days, though they're often eaten long before then. For added variety, Grandma advised mixing in carrot or beet peels in the same batch to create a colorful assortment of homemade vegetable crisps. Turn stale bread into bread pudding. The secret to rich, comforting desserts often starts with scraps. Stale bread that's gone too firm for toast can be transformed into a delicious bread pudding with just a few pantry staples. Tear the bread into chunks and soak in a mixture of eggs, milk, a bit of sugar, and a splash of vanilla or cinnamon if you have it. Let it sit until saturated, then bake until golden and puffed. The stale bread absorbs moisture better than fresh, making the pudding fluffier and more flavorful. Bread pudding can swing sweet or savory. Add raisins and brown sugar, or shredded cheese and herbs. If your bread is extra dry, drizzle with warm milk before mixing. This method honors a tradition of stretching ingredients and cutting waste in one satisfying dish. For smaller portions, portion the mixture into muffin tins to create individual servings that are easy to pack or share. Pad ground meat with oats. Grandma knew that stretching ingredients didn't just save money. It added heartiness to meals. When ground meat was scarce or expensive, she added rolled oats to make every ounce go further. Simply mix uncooked oats into your ground beef or turkey before forming patties or meatloaf. The oats absorb the juices and bind everything together without changing the flavor. This trick works especially well for meatballs, giving them a softer bite and holding shape better during cooking. You can season the oats beforehand with onion, herbs, or spices so the flavor remains balanced throughout. Besides stretching your protein, oats add fiber and make the dish more filling. If you're not fond of the texture, pulse them briefly in a grinder to create finer crumbs. For even more volume, you can also mix in shredded vegetables like carrots or zucchini, keeping the meat tender and moist while adding nutrition in disguise. Shake vinegar in mayo jar dressing. When the mayo jar gets too empty to spread, don't toss it, shake it. Add a splash of vinegar, a drizzle of oil, and your favorite seasonings right into the jar. Close the lid tight and shake well to create a creamy, tangy dressing that's perfect for salads or slaws. This thrifty habit turns remnants into flavor without needing a mixing bowl. You can also experiment with honey, mustard, garlic powder, or herbs to create custom blends from odds and ends. Scraping every last bit from the jar is not only practical, but saves you from washing extra dishes. Let the mixture sit for a bit to meld the flavors together. This same method works with mustard jars or yogurt containers too. Just adjust the acid and oil ratios. For thicker dressings, add a spoonful of mashed beans or hummus to help it cling better to greens or sliced vegetables. Stretch milk with powder. When milk runs low, you don't always need a fresh bottle to fill the gap. Powdered milk can be a smart standby, especially when blended with fresh to stretch supply without changing taste. Mix equal parts fresh milk and reconstituted powdered milk for drinking, baking, or cooking. Stir thoroughly to eliminate lumps and let sit for a few minutes before use so the texture evens out. In cooked dishes like oatmeal, sauces, or casseroles, powdered milk performs just as well as the fresh stuff. Keep a sealed tin in the pantry for emergencies or budget weeks. If you're skeptical about flavor, use the powdered mix in recipes where milk is only a background note, like pancakes or mashed potatoes. Always mix in cold water and whisk well to avoid clumping. For creamier results, try adding a spoonful of butter or a few drops of oil to mimic whole milk's richness. Bake cornbread alongside rice pudding. Using one hot oven to cook multiple dishes isn't just efficient, it's a classic poor man's practice. When preparing a sweet rice pudding, slide in a cornbread pan alongside it to maximize every degree of heat. Cornbread bakes quickly while the pudding takes its time to thicken, making the timing work in your favor. The scent of corn, mingling with cinnamon or nutmeg, adds warmth to the entire kitchen. This duo makes a satisfying supper with minimal fuel or cleanup. Cornbread can double as a dessert or soak up extra milk from the pudding bowl. Be sure to rotate the pans halfway through baking to ensure even browning, especially in wood stove ovens or older gas stoves where heat varies. If space is tight, bake the cornbread in a muffin tin or small iron skillet to fit alongside any baking dish. For added flavor, stir shredded cheese or chopped onions into the cornbread batter before baking. Freeze leftover gravy in muffin tins. Waste not, want not, especially when it comes to flavorful pan gravy. Instead of tossing the last few spoonfuls, pour leftover gravy into muffin tins and freeze for later use. Each portion pops out easily, perfect for reheating single servings of mashed potatoes, meat, or biscuits. This trick also works with sauces or soups, helping you stretch small quantities into future meals. Once frozen, transfer the cubes to a bag and label them to keep things organized. You can combine different gravies later into a pot for rich, mixed flavors. This saves time and prevents unnecessary cooking when hunger hits or supplies run thin. To avoid sticking, coat the tin lightly with grease or use silicone molds for effortless release. When reheating, drop a cube into a saucepan with a splash of water or broth. For thicker consistency, whisk in a bit of flour or leftover mashed potatoes while warming. Shred broccoli stems for crunchy slaw. Most folks toss broccoli stems, but they're packed with crunch and mild flavor. Perfect for slaw. Peel the tough outer skin with a knife or peeler, then shred the core into long strips using a grater or sharp knife. Mix with vinegar, a pinch of sugar, and oil for a simple side dish. This part of the vegetable holds up well to dressing and stays crisp longer than leafy greens. Add in bits of onion, carrot, or cabbage if you have them to bulk up the salad. It's an excellent way to stretch a small harvest or make use of what others might discard. If you're low on vinegar, lemon juice works in a pinch. You can also stir in a dollop of mustard or pickle brine for extra tang. For the freshest taste, chill the slaw for at least 30 minutes before serving, so the flavors meld. Stuffed cabbage rolls with leftover rice. Stretching cooked grains into hearty meals is a smart old trick. When you've got leftover rice, don't toss it. Use it as the base for stuffed cabbage rolls. Steam or boil large cabbage leaves until they're pliable, then wrap them around seasoned rice mixed with beans, meat, or vegetables. Bake them in a tomato sauce or a light broth to infuse extra flavor. This dish fills hungry bellies and uses up bits of food that might otherwise be wasted. It's also portable and easy to reheat the next day. You can freeze the uncooked rolls in batches, ready to pull out and bake when needed. For more flavor, sauté onions or garlic into the rice mix before stuffing. If the cabbage leaves are too small, overlap two to form a single roll. When baking, cover tightly to keep moisture in and prevent the rolls from drying out while they cook. Cook end-of-garden vegetable relish. When the garden is nearly bare, don't let those odds and ends go to waste. Turn them into relish. Gather whatever's left: green tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, onions, even a soft carrot or two. Chop them finely and cook in a brine of vinegar, sugar, and salt until tender. This creates a tangy, colorful relish that pairs well with beans, eggs, or dry cornbread. You can preserve it by canning or store it in a cool cellar for several weeks. Relish is a traditional way to save abundance from spoiling and to add flavor during leaner months. If you have mustard seeds, celery seeds, or a bay leaf, toss them into the brine for a spiced version. The finer the vegetables are chopped, the better they absorb flavor and pack into jars. For best results, stir often during cooking, so nothing sticks to the pot, and skim foam from the top. Pop corn in sizzling bacon fat. Remember the bacon drippings Grandma saved earlier? One of the tastiest ways to reuse them is to pop corn kernels right in that hot, flavorful fat. The smoky aroma infuses each fluffy bite, making plain popcorn feel like a savory treat instead of a simple snack. Start by heating a few spoonfuls of cooled bacon fat in a heavy pot. Add popcorn kernels and cover tightly. Shake occasionally over heat until the popping slows. The result? A snack that's crisp, golden, and rich with flavor. It's a great way to make the most of your pantry and reduce waste at the same time. If you like a spicy kick, sprinkle in some black pepper or cayenne before popping. For added crunch, toss in chopped nuts or bits of dried herbs right after popping. Store any leftover drippings in a sealed tin for the next batch or other fried dishes. Rinse milk bottle into pancake batter. Every drop counts in a frugal kitchen. And that last bit of milk clinging to the bottle is no exception. Instead of wasting it, rinse the container with a little water, swirl it around, and pour that thin, milky mix into your pancake batter. This stretches the recipe without diluting flavor, while also cleaning out the bottle before washing. It's a humble but smart way to make the most of what you already have. Even if you're making cornbread or biscuits, that milky rinse can soften the dough and stretch your yield. You can do the same with cream or buttermilk containers too. If your batter seems too thin after adding the rinse, stir in a spoonful of extra flour or oats to balance it. Mix the batter gently and let it rest before cooking. It'll puff better and hold together on the skillet. Always rinse containers this way before tossing or recycling. Replace cream with reconstituted powdered milk. Did you know that powdered milk, when mixed carefully, can stand in for cream in many recipes? It's a classic pantry hack used for generations to stretch limited ingredients and save money. Mix the powder at double strength, 2 parts powder to 1 part water, to create a richer substitute that works in coffee, gravy, or even pie filling. It won't whip like heavy cream, but it will add the creamy texture and mild flavor needed in most cooking situations. This technique is particularly handy during lean times or off-grid living when refrigeration is limited. You can even stir in a bit of butter or oil to mimic the fat content of real cream. Keep powdered milk stored in an airtight jar in a cool pantry to extend its shelf life. For better flavor, let reconstituted milk sit for a few minutes before use, so the powder fully dissolves and thickens. Stretch canned fish using crushed crackers. Making canned fish go farther is all about clever stretching. A can of tuna, mackerel, or salmon becomes a full meal when mixed with crushed crackers and a bit of egg or mustard. The crackers absorb moisture and add body, turning a small portion into satisfying fish cakes or patties. This technique turns one can into enough for the whole family, especially when served with rice or greens. It's not just economical, it's also delicious when seasoned well. Add chopped onions, herbs, or pickles for extra flavor and texture. Fry the mixture in a bit of oil or bacon fat until golden on both sides. Serve with a side of beans or leftover vegetables. For lighter flavor, use saltine crackers. For extra crunch, use cornmeal or crushed pretzels. You can also shape the mixture into small balls and bake them instead of frying to save fuel and mess. Fry leftover vegetables into Friday fritters. At the end of the week, odds and ends of cooked vegetables can be transformed into crisp, satisfying fritters. Mash together leftovers like carrots, peas, greens, or potatoes with a bit of flour, cornmeal, or even old breadcrumbs. Stir in an egg if you have one, or a splash of milk or broth to bind the mixture. Pan fry scoops of the batter until golden and heated through. This poor man's favorite is perfect for using up scraps and giving them new life. Fritters can be seasoned with herbs or spices depending on what's around. They're especially good topped with applesauce or a dollop of sour milk. You can even stretch the batch further by adding cooked rice or grated raw vegetables. Store leftover fritters in a covered tin and reheat on a hot pan the next day. For extra crunch, dust the outsides with cornmeal before frying. Slow cook beans overnight during off-peak. Did you know that slow cooking beans overnight during off-peak hours was once a common strategy to save both time and firewood? By soaking dry beans and placing them in a warm oven or simmering crock overnight, homesteaders made hearty, protein-rich meals with little effort. This method allows beans to fully soften and absorb flavors without constant attention. Long simmering not only enhances texture, but reduces the compounds that cause digestion discomfort. In the morning, beans are ready for stews, spreads, or breakfast burritos. You can stretch this hack further by cooking extra and freezing portions for later meals. Stirring in herbs like bay or thyme while cooking adds depth, and a spoonful of vinegar at the end brings brightness. To avoid scorching, always start with ample water and never cook acidic ingredients, like tomatoes, until beans are fully tender. If you don't use a wood stove, wrap the pot in towels to preserve heat overnight. Boil apple cores into breakfast jelly. If you've been tossing out apple cores and peels, you're skipping one of the cleverest ways to make use of every bit. Instead of discarding them, boil the scraps with water, lemon juice, and a spoonful of sugar to create a flavorful, pectin-rich liquid perfect for turning into jelly. The natural sweetness and thickness of the cores extract beautifully with time and gentle heat. Once strained and simmered down, the result becomes a soft-set jelly that's ideal for toast, biscuits, or even glazes. It's an excellent way to use leftover apple bits from pies or snacks. To deepen the flavor, toss in a cinnamon stick or a clove during the boil. After cooling, store the jelly in small jars or crockery dishes and keep cool. For smoother texture, strain the liquid twice through a cloth. Add this trick to your weekly prep and you'll never waste apple scraps again. Thicken thin soup with toasted crust. When soup turns out thinner than expected, don't reach for flour or cream. Turn to stale bread crust instead. This age-old trick transforms bland, watery broths into thick, comforting meals using what would otherwise go to waste. Toast the crusts until golden and dry, then crumble them directly into simmering soup. They'll break down and add both texture and depth without masking the original flavor. This technique works especially well with vegetable, lentil, or tomato-based broths. Crusts from hearty whole grain or sourdough loaves offer the best flavor and structure. You can also rub the crusts with garlic before toasting to enhance savory stews. Save your bread ends during the week and keep them in a dry tin until needed. For an even thicker result, blend the soup after adding crusts and finish with a drizzle of oil or splash of vinegar. No spoonful of soup should ever go unfinished again. Bake fruit crisp beneath Sunday roast. Making the most of oven space has long been a staple of frugal cooking, and baking dessert beneath your roast is a brilliant example. As your Sunday meat cooks on the top rack, a fruit crisp, layered with leftover apples, pears, or berries, can bake slowly on the rack below. The rising heat caramelizes the fruit and browns the oat or biscuit topping without needing extra fuel or time. This method also frees up counter space and reduces dishwashing. Sprinkle the fruit with sugar and cinnamon and use old breadcrumbs or oats for topping if flour is scarce. To keep juices from spilling, place the crisp on a baking sheet. Add a dollop of cold cream or milk to serve, and you've made a full 2-course meal with a single fire. You can also try this hack with stewed fruit or canned fillings, whatever's handy by the end of the week. Tenderize tough cuts with a pressure pot. Some of the toughest cuts of meat were once the most affordable, and Grandma knew exactly how to make them tender and flavorful. Using a pressure pot, she could break down sinew and connective tissue without long stewing times. This sealed pot trapped steam, raised the internal temperature quickly, and softened meat in less than an hour. Chuck, brisket, or even organ meats transformed into fork-tender dishes with just a little patience and seasoning. Today, this trick is still used by home cooks who want to save money and time while making the most of every bite. You can flavor the liquid with onion skins, carrot ends, or even vinegar to boost the broth. Always let the pot cool slowly before opening and never overfill it. For added richness, brown the meat first before sealing the lid. Keep your pressure pot well maintained and it'll serve you faithfully for years.